What happens when a successful CEO walks into his own store and gets treated unfairly, just like any other stranger? It was just past 10 a.m. on a Saturday morning when Terrence Hall adjusted his baseball cap using the rearview mirror. The reflection staring back didn't look like the powerful CEO who had built a multi-million-dollar retail empire. Instead, he looked like any regular guy in a hoodie and jeans, far from the tailored suits he wore most days. But that was the point. Today wasn't about meetings or numbers. Today was about walking into one of his own stores unannounced, to see it from a new perspective, like any customer would. Terrence had always believed that every person mattered, no matter their background. His company had been founded on that promise. But lately, quiet complaints had started surfacing. Talks of rudeness, unfair treatment, and poor customer care. If there was truth to it, he needed to see it for himself, not as the boss, but as someone who experienced it firsthand. The store he chose was just outside Dallas, Texas. It wasn't the company's main store, and it didn't have the highest sales. But it mattered for a different reason. It was the very first location he opened outside his home state, a risk that had paid off well. He'd been there often in the beginning, but now, years later, he couldn't help but wonder, had the friendly, welcoming atmosphere he once built survived? He parked his car and took a breath. A mix of nerves and determination filled his chest. Without his title to shield him, he was stepping into uncertain territory. But he owed it to himself and to every customer who walked through those doors to face the truth, whatever it might be. What Terrence didn't know, though, was that this visit would lead to a moment he'd never forget, one that would shake everything he believed about his own business. He stepped out of the car and into the busy parking lot. The sun was high, bouncing off windshields all around. He adjusted the strap of his worn-out canvas bag, something a normal shopper might carry. Today, he wasn't CEO Terrence Hall. He was just another face in the store. No one needed to know his name. As he approached the building, the bold logo gleamed in the sunlight. A wave of pride swept through him. This was his dream, made real. But that feeling quickly faded as he walked to the automatic doors and into the cool blast of air conditioning. Inside, the store buzzed with energy. Shoppers pushed carts filled with items. Kids chattered near the toy section. Employees in matching uniform stock shelves rang up purchases and helped customers. To a casual observer, everything seemed fine. But Terrence wasn't here to glance. He was here to see. He stopped by a display of colorful kitchen appliances, quietly watching the scene. A young employee in a striped jacket chatted politely with a customer. Another worker nearby was rearranging items, moving quickly but without much feeling. At the far end of the store, Terrence spotted a younger man leaning against the electronics counter, scrolling through his phone without much interest. Terrence headed that way, walking slowly through the aisles like a regular customer. He picked up a pair of headphones and turned them over, pretending to think about buying them. It was a simple test. Would the employee look up, say hello, offer help? Nothing. The young man didn't even glance in his direction. Terrence waited, giving him every chance. Still no response. That uneasy feeling in his stomach grew stronger, but he didn't want to judge too quickly. Maybe the employee was busy. Maybe he didn't notice. So Terrence kept walking, watching how others were treated. Near the home goods section, he saw an older woman clearly needing help. She looked around, unsure. But before Terrence could step in, another staff member approached her, smiling, helpful, and kind. The woman's face relaxed with relief as they spoke. It was a completely different experience from what Terrence had just faced. Still, he wasn't ready to walk away. He turned back toward the electronics counter, determined to give the young man one more chance. But what happened next made one thing painfully clear. This wasn't just a missed moment. This was a sign of something much deeper. Terrence walked back to the electronics counter, this time holding a box set of Bluetooth speakers. He gently placed it on the counter, an obvious gesture, one that should have caught anyone's attention. The young employee finally glanced up. His face showed no emotion, just a blank look. "Can I help you?" he asked, sounding like he really didn't want to. Terrence offered a friendly smile, trying to ease the tension. "Yeah, I was just wondering if these are good for outdoor use." The worker gave the box a quick look and shrugged. I don't know. Maybe. He was already looking back at his phone. Terrence paused, surprised by the indifference. Could you check? I want to make sure before I buy them. The employee let out a deep sigh, like Terrence was asking for something unreasonable. He grabbed the box, flipped it over, scanned the back, and muttered, "Says here they're weatherproof," before handing it back with no further explanation. Terrence felt frustration bubbling up, but kept his voice steady. Okay, and do you know if they work with most devices? The employee rolled his eyes. Look, man, all the info's right there on the box. You can read it, or get something else. Doesn't matter to me. The silence between them grew heavy. The noise of the busy store faded as the moment settled in. Terrence felt the shift. It wasn't just a lack of interest. It was a lack of respect. He looked around. Other customers were being treated with care and attention. At the front of the store, a white couple was getting personalized help from the same staff member who'd assisted the older woman earlier. And yet here he stood, being brushed off without a second thought. Still calm, Terrence pushed a little further. You seem busy, he said carefully. Is there someone else who might be available to help? The employee smirked. The look on his face made it clear he didn't care. I don't think anyone's free right now. Just figure out, all right? The word stung more than Terrence expected. He wasn't angry, at least not yet. He was deeply disappointed. This wasn't just bad service. It felt like something deeper. And it wasn't just about him. If this was how the employee treated someone he didn't recognize, how many others had walked out of the store feeling the same way? Before Terrence could say anything else, the young man turned his back, picked up his phone, and walked away toward the rear of the store. Terrence stood there for a moment, still holding the speaker box. He thought about just leaving, but no, he wasn't finished. Not yet. What he didn't realize was that this careless interaction would soon uncover something even more troubling about the company he thought he knew. He placed the box back on the shelf, his mind spinning. This wasn't just poor behavior. It felt personal. He continued through the store, paying close attention to how employees treated others. If his own experience was a one-time thing, he needed to see that. But if it wasn't, he had a much bigger issue to deal with. In the clothing section, he saw a young Latina employee neatly folding shirts. She smiled warmly and greeted him right away. "Let me know if you need help with anything," she said sincerely. It was a complete change from what he'd just experienced. Terrence lingered, pretending to browse. He watched her help an elderly man find the right size, even suggesting a matching tie. Her patience and care were obvious, and the man's smile said it all. For the first time that day, Terrence felt a small sense of hope. Maybe all wasn't lost. But as he moved closer to the home goods section, he overheard something that stopped him cold. Two employees stood leaning against a shelf, speaking in low voices. Their tone was casual, but their words cut deep. "That guy over there," one said, nodding toward Terrence. "Probably just here to look around. People like him don't buy anything big." Terrence felt his jaw tighten. He picked up a pot from the shelf, pretending to inspect it. The other one laughed. "Yeah, he doesn't look like he's got the money for this stuff. Probably just wasting time." It hit like a punch to the gut. They didn't know who he was. To them, he was just another black man walking the aisles. And they decided, without a second thought, that he couldn't afford to be there. But it was the way they said it. The ease, the comfort with which they dismissed him, that said everything. It wasn't just one rude employee. It was a store's culture, something deeper that had allowed these attitudes to grow unnoticed. Terrence stayed quiet, holding back the urge to say something right then and there. Instead, he headed toward the front of the store, wanting to see more before making any moves. At the checkout, he noticed a middle-aged black woman helping customers with calm professionalism. Her name tag said Denise. Terrence watched as she greeted every customer with a kind smile and a warm tone. When it was his turn, she looked up and smiled at him. "Did you find everything okay?" she asked. "Not exactly," Terrence replied evenly. "I think I'll hold off for now." Denise's smile faded just a little, but she nodded. "Well, if you need anything, just let us know. We're here to help." Her kindness was real, And for a moment, it softened the frustration building in Terrence's chest. Clearly, not everyone in the store treated people with indifference, but that only raised more questions. Why were some employees warm and helpful, while others were cold and dismissive? As he stepped out into the parking lot, the thought stayed with him. Something bigger was going on, and he couldn't ignore it any longer. Sitting behind the wheel of his car, the afternoon heat pressing to the windows, Terrence gripped the steering wheel tightly. He stared at the storefront bearing his company's name. This business, his pride, his life's work, was meant to stand for fairness, respect, and opportunity. But after what he had just experienced, those values seemed like they were slipping away. The memory of that rude employee still lingered. But what truly stuck in his mind were the quiet, hurtful comments he'd overheard near the home goods aisle. Those weren't random moments. They pointed to a deeper problem in his company's culture, one he hadn't seen coming. Terrence thought back to the early years, when he was still hands-on, training every store manager himself, choosing staff who shared his vision. Back then, he always said the same thing. Treat every customer like they matter, no matter who they are or what they're buying. But as the business grew, it became harder to stay connected. He had to trust others to carry the message forward. And now he wondered, had growth come to cost of the values he built everything on? Had he become too distant from the day-to-day reality? Was he still training his managers to build a culture of respect? Or had they stopped paying attention? Had he given employees the right tools to fight bias and treat all customers fairly? He took a deep breath, thinking about all that had happened that day. Denise, the kind cashier, had reminded him of the company he wanted to have. But employees like her were being overshadowed by those who didn't seem to care at all. This wasn't just about one bad day. It was about a workplace culture he had let slip away. Terrence opened his glove box, pulled out the small notebook he always kept there, and started writing down his thoughts. This wasn't just about fixing one store. It was about making sure every employee at every location understood what his brand stood for. It was time to take responsibility from the top down. But before he could rebuild, there was one more thing he needed to do. Something that would show just how serious this problem was and how far it had spread. Terrence stepped out of his car and walked back toward the store. He wasn't going in to cause a scene or embarrass anyone. This wasn't about pride. It was about correcting a culture that had gone off track. He walked up to the customer service desk and asked to speak with the manager. A few minutes later, a man in his late 40s appeared. His name tag read Brian. He looked professional but a little cautious. "How can I help you today?" Brian asked. Terrence reached out to shake his hand. "Terrence Hall," he said. Brian's eyes widened. Recognition hit immediately. "I'm the owner of the store." For a moment, Brian's expression slipped, but then he quickly regained his composure. "Mr. Hall, it's an honor to meet you. If I had known you were visiting." Terrence raised a hand to stop him. "That's the point, Brian. You weren't supposed to know. I came in today as a regular customer. I wanted to see things as they really are." He paused. "And what I saw today, it wasn't good." Brian's face turned red. "I'm sorry to hear that. Can you tell me what happened?" Terrence calmly shared what had happened during his visit. The cold treatment from the electronics worker, the overheard comments, and how different some customer experiences had been depending on who they were. His voice was steady but serious. His disappointment was clear. "This isn't just about one employee having a bad day," he said. "It's about a culture that allows this kind of behavior to continue. I built this company on the belief that every customer deserves respect, no matter who they are. But today, I saw the opposite of that." Brian shifted awkwardly. I didn't know this was happening," he replied. "I've always tried to make sure the team follows company values." Terrence nodded. "I believe you, but something is slipping through the cracks. And that's not just your responsibility. It's mine too. Somewhere along the way, the values I started this company with have started to fade. That ends today." He asked Brian to gather the staff in the break room for a quick meeting. Within minutes, everyone had gathered. Faces were filled with curiosity and a bit of nervousness. Terrence stood in front of them, not as an anonymous customer this time, but as a CEO they didn't expect to meet in person. "Good afternoon," he said, his voice calm and clear. "For those of you who don't know me, I'm Terrence Hall. I'm the founder and CEO of this company. Today, I came in undercover to see how things really work here." The room went quiet. His words hit hard. He paused and looked around the room, meeting eyes before continuing. "What I saw today was upsetting. Some of you showed the kind of kindness and professionalism that built this company, and I thank you for that. But others failed to show even basic respect. And that failure isn't just yours. It's mine, too. I didn't make sure our culture stayed strong across every store." He turned to face the young man from the electronics counter, who now looked pale and uncomfortable. "You ignored me, treated me like I didn't matter. That's not okay." Then he looked around the room again. But what hurt even more was what I overheard. Two employees making assumptions about me based on how I looked, judging me without knowing anything about me. The room grew heavy with silence. "But I'm not here to shame anyone," Terrence continued. "I'm here to fix this. Because if we don't treat every customer with respect, then we fail, and I won't let that happen." As he looked at their faces, he could tell the message was sinking in. Shock was slowly giving way to reflection. He gave them a moment, then spoke again, this time with direction. "Here's what we're going to do," he said. "This isn't about blame. It's about taking responsibility and growing from it. Every one of us, including me, has a role in protecting the values this company was built on." He turned to Brian. "First, we're starting mandatory training on unconscious bias, respect, and proper customer service. Not just here, but in every store. We can't assume people know how to treat others. We have to teach it, reinforce it, and expect it." Brian nodded, clearly taking it seriously. "Understood, Mr. Hall. I'll get it started right away." Terrence looked back at the team. "Second, I'll be visiting stores more often, unannounced. This isn't about catching people off guard. It's about staying involved. I need to see what's really happening, not just read reports." Some employees looked uneasy, but others, like Denise, gave small nods of support. "And lastly," Terrence said, softening his tone, "I want to hear from all of you what's working, what's not. If something's wrong, whether the manager, a policy, or anything else, I need to know. My door is always open. And for anyone who doesn't feel comfortable speaking to me directly, we'll be setting up a way for you to share concerns anonymously." That seemed to ease the tension. Shoulders relaxed. Faces softened. Terrence knew it was time to end on a meaningful note. "I started this company to be different, to create a place where everyone felt welcome and respected. Somewhere along the way, we lost part of that, but I'm not giving up. I know we can get it back. And I need your help to do it." As the meeting came to a close, Terrence walked over to Denise, the cashier who had treated him with care and professionalism earlier. "Thank you for being a bright spot today," he said with a warm smile. "Your attitude reminded me why I started this business in the first place." Denise smiled back. Her voice was calm and kind. "Thank you, Mr. Hall. I just try to treat people the way I'd want to be treated." Walking out of the store for the second time that day, Terrence felt tired but hopeful. There was a long road ahead. Fixing the problem wouldn't happen overnight, but something had shifted. He had seen the truth for himself, and now he was ready to do something about it. As he drove away, Terrence felt a renewed sense of purpose. He knew that sometimes the only way to move forward is to face hard truths head on, because real change starts with one person willing to take the first step. If this story meant something to you, remember, even small actions can create big change. Treat others with respect. Speak up when something isn't right. And never stop working toward a better, fairer world. Subscribe for more stories that inspire action and shine a light on what truly matters.